National Electrical Code, or NEC, Section 422.12 general states that electrically heated water heaters shall be installed in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. Section 422.12b location states that water heaters shall be located in an accessible place. NFPA 30 National Fuel Gas Code, Section 5.4.2.1 requires that water heaters be installed in a location where they will not be exposed to water. Many water heater manufacturers require that the unit be installed in a dry location. The code generally requires that water heaters be located in an accessible, dry place. However, it does not specifically address the installation of a switch or ground fault circuit interrupter (GFCI) receptacle box near a water heater for a recirculating pump. An inspector's request for the switch or GFCI receptacle box to be wet location rated may be based on the assumption that the water source for the recirculating pump could cause water to come into contact with the box. Here are counterarguments to consider. The GFCI receptacle box may be located a distance away from the water heater, which is not within the splash zone of the water source. The box may be surface mounted and protected by an industrial cover plate, which further reduces the likelihood of water contact. The GFCI receptacle itself is rated for wet locations, providing additional protection against electrical hazards if water does come into contact with the box. Suggested evidence that can be provided may include the following. NEC 2020-422.12b does not specifically require water heaters to be installed in wet locations. NFPA 35.4.2.1 requires protection from water, but does not specifically address switch or GFCI receptacle boxes near water heaters. Also provide manufacturer's instructions. Provide evidence that the specific water heater model does not require installation in a wet location. Provide photographs of the installation that show that the box is not within the splash zone and is adequately protected. Based on the code and available evidence, it could be reasonable to argue that the switch or GFCI receptacle box does not need to be wet location rated in this specific installation. The box is located outside the splash zone, is adequately protected, and the GFCI receptacle is rated for wet locations. When interpreting the electrical code related to the location of water heaters and associated electrical components, it's important to consider several factors. Firstly, the National Electrical Code, or NEC, provides general guidelines for the installation of electrical equipment, including water heaters. These guidelines are intended to ensure safety and prevent electrical hazards. Secondly, local codes and regulations may supplement or modify the NEC requirements, so it's essential to be aware of any specific rules in your jurisdiction. Thirdly, manufacturer's instructions for the water heater and electrical components must be followed. These instructions often provide specific requirements for installation, including location and protection from environmental factors. Fourthly, the definition of wet location is crucial. According to the NEC, a wet location is an area where water or other liquids may drip, splash, or flow on or against electrical equipment. This includes areas subject to saturation with water or other liquids such as some car washes, and unprotected locations exposed to weather. When evaluating the need for a wet location rating for electrical components near a water heater, consider the likelihood of water exposure. Factors to consider include the proximity of the components to the water heater, the presence of any potential sources of leaks or splashes, and the type of enclosure used for the components. The NEC provides specific requirements for the installation of receptacles in wet locations. Generally, receptacles installed in wet locations must be protected by a weatherproof enclosure and a while-in-use cover. These measures help to prevent water from entering the receptacle and causing a short circuit or other electrical hazard. Ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI, protection is also required for receptacles installed in wet locations. A GFCI is a device that detects ground faults, which occur when electricity flows through an unintended path to ground. GFCIs quickly interrupt the flow of electricity, preventing electrical shock and reducing the risk of fire. In the case of a switch or GFCI receptacle box installed near a water heater for a recirculating pump, the need for a wet location rating depends on the specific circumstances. If the box is located in an area where it is likely to be exposed to water, such as near a drain or a source of leaks, then a wet location rating is likely required. However, if the box is located in a dry area and is protected from water exposure, then a wet location rating may not be necessary. To support the argument that a wet location rating is not required, you can provide evidence such as photographs showing the location of the box relative to the water heater and any potential sources of water. You can also provide documentation showing that the box is protected from water exposure by an enclosure or other means. Additionally, you can cite relevant sections of the NEC or local codes that support your interpretation. When dealing with an inspector who has a different interpretation of the code, it's important to remain respectful and professional. Start by explaining your understanding of the code and the reasons why you believe a wet location rating is not required in this particular situation. Provide the evidence and documentation you have gathered to support your argument. If the inspector remains unconvinced, you may consider requesting a second opinion from another inspector or a code official. In some cases, it may be necessary to file an appeal to the local building department or electrical authority. Ultimately, the goal is to reach a mutually agreeable solution that ensures the safety of the electrical installation while complying with the applicable codes and regulations. In addition to the general principles outlined above, there are several specific considerations to keep in mind when interpreting the code related to the location of water heaters and associated electrical components. Firstly, consider the type of water heater being installed. Electric water heaters have different requirements than gas or propane water heaters. Electric water heaters require a dedicated circuit and overcurrent protection, while gas or propane water heaters require a gas supply line and venting. Secondly, consider the location of the water heater relative to other equipment and structures. Water heaters should be located in an accessible area where they can be easily serviced and maintained. They should also be located away from flammable materials and sources of ignition. Thirdly, consider the environmental conditions in the area where the water heater is being installed. Water heaters installed in damp or humid environments may require additional protection from corrosion. Water heaters installed in cold climates may require insulation to prevent freezing. Fourthly, consider the specific requirements of the local codes and regulations. Some jurisdictions may have additional requirements for the installation of water heaters, such as seismic bracing or backflow prevention. Finally, consult with a qualified electrician or plumbing contractor to ensure that the water heater is installed in accordance with all applicable codes and regulations. They can provide expert guidance on the proper location, wiring, and plumbing for the water heater. Furthermore, it's crucial to understand the specific requirements for ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI, protection in the area where the water heater is installed. GFCI protection is required for receptacles located in damp or wet locations, such as bathrooms, kitchens, and outdoor areas. GFCI receptacles are designed to detect ground faults, which can occur when electricity flows through an unintended path to ground. When a ground fault is detected, the GFCI receptacle quickly interrupts the flow of electricity, preventing electrical shock and reducing the risk of fire. In the case of a switch or GFCI receptacle box installed near a water heater for a recirculating pump, GFCI protection may be required depending on the location of the box and the likelihood of water exposure. If the box is located in a damp or wet location, such as near a drain or a source of leaks, then GFCI protection is likely required. However, if the box is located in a dry area and is protected from water exposure, then GFCI protection may not be necessary. To determine whether GFCI protection is required, consult the NEC and local codes and regulations. These codes specify the locations where GFCI protection is required for receptacles. Additionally, consider the manufacturer's instructions for the water heater and electrical components. These instructions may provide specific requirements for GFCI protection. If GFCI protection is required, it can be provided by installing a GFCI receptacle in the box or by installing a GFCI circuit breaker in the electrical panel that supplies power to the box. When installing a GFCI receptacle, be sure to follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. Test the GFCI receptacle after installation to ensure that it is working properly. In addition to GFCI protection, it's also important to ensure that the wiring and grounding of the electrical system are in accordance with the NEC and local codes and regulations. Proper wiring and grounding help to prevent electrical shock and reduce the risk of fire. When wiring a switch or GFCI receptacle box near a water heater, use the appropriate size and type of wire for the circuit. Ensure that all connections are tight and secure. Ground the box properly by connecting it to the grounding system of the electrical system. Finally, it's important to obtain the necessary permits and inspections for the electrical installation. Permits and inspections help to ensure that the installation is in compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. Contact the local building department or electrical authority to obtain the necessary permits and schedule inspections. By following these guidelines, you can ensure that the water heater and associated electrical components are installed safely and in accordance with all applicable codes and regulations. Remember, if you have any questions or concerns, consult with a qualified electrician or plumbing contractor. They can provide expert guidance on the proper installation and maintenance of water heaters and electrical systems. Also, consider the importance of proper ventilation for water heaters, especially gas or propane models. Proper ventilation helps to remove combustion byproducts such as carbon monoxide from the area around the water heater. Carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless gas that can be deadly if inhaled. Gas or propane water heaters should be vented to the outside using a properly sized vent pipe. The vent pipe should be installed in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions and local codes and regulations. Ensure that the vent pipe is free from obstructions and that it is properly sealed to prevent leaks. In addition to proper ventilation, it's also important to install a carbon monoxide detector in the area around the water heater. Carbon monoxide detectors are designed to detect the presence of carbon monoxide gas in the air. If a carbon monoxide detector detects carbon monoxide, it will sound an alarm to alert occupants of the danger. Test the carbon monoxide detector regularly to ensure that it is working properly. Replace the batteries in the carbon monoxide detector as needed. If you suspect a carbon monoxide leak, evacuate the premises immediately and call the fire department or a qualified HVAC technician. Furthermore, consider the importance of regular maintenance for water heaters. Regular maintenance helps to ensure that the water heater is operating safely and efficiently. Follow the manufacturer's instructions for maintenance. Drain the water heater periodically to remove sediment buildup. Sediment buildup can reduce the efficiency of the water heater and can lead to premature failure. Inspect the water heater for leaks or corrosion. Repair any leaks or corrosion promptly to prevent further damage. Test the temperature and pressure relief valve on the water heater to ensure that it is working properly. The temperature and pressure relief valve is designed to relieve excess pressure and temperature in the water heater. If the temperature and pressure relief valve is not working properly, it can lead to a dangerous explosion. Finally, consider the energy efficiency of the water heater. Energy-efficient water heaters can save you money on your energy bills and reduce your carbon footprint. Look for water heaters that are ENERGY STAR certified. ENERGY STAR certified water heaters meet strict energy efficiency guidelines set by the Environmental Protection Agency. Consider installing a tankless water heater. Tankless water heaters heat water only when it is needed, which can save energy compared to traditional tank-style water heaters. Insulate the water heater and hot water pipes to reduce heat loss. Insulating the water heater and hot water pipes can help to keep the water hot and reduce energy consumption. By following these guidelines, you can ensure that the water heater is operating safely, efficiently, and in compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. Remember, if you have any questions or concerns, consult with a qualified electrician or plumbing contractor. They can provide expert guidance on the proper installation, maintenance, and operation of water heaters and electrical systems.